This episode of Watch Wrestling with Mike Wellman is going to be dedicated to looking back at the life and story of Windham Rotunda, better known to all of us as Bray Wyatt. We are extremely sad and are still processing everything with his passing, but we're going to take some time with this whole episode here to celebrate the man that changed wrestling, the visionary, and look back at the legendary career of one of our favorite wrestlers, Bray Wyatt. So I'm going to bring on wrestling fan Chris. What's up, Chris?
What's going on? Hello.
Welcome to the show. This is episode 65 of Watch Wrestling with Mike Wellman. Like I said, we are here to talk about Bray Wyatt, the shocking, untimely passing that we learned about last week. Like I said, we're still processing everything. So we're going to get into a lot of our favorite moments from Bray Wyatt's WWE career, his WWE run. And yeah, just look back and spend a whole episode just paying our respects to, like I said, one of our favorite wrestlers, Bray Wyatt. So let's start with the news of Bray Wyatt's passing. So last week, Triple H tweeted out that the WWE was just informed by Mike Rotunda that Windham Rotunda had passed away. This would have been last Thursday. Age 36. He leaves behind his fiance, I believe, JoJo Offerman, and 4 young children. Just so incredibly sad. I heard the news from a text from wrestling fan Chris. And how did you hear about it, Chris? Was it seeing the Triple H tweet?
It was the Triple H tweet, and at first I had to look at that tweet multiple times to make sure it wasn't like a parody account. I really couldn't believe it. I knew he was out with some sort of illness, but everything I heard up to that point was that he was on his way back. He was on track to come back soon. And I didn't know that his illness was even that serious, that we were worried about something like this happening. And yeah, when I found out that was actually Triple H, and then I went and looked to Sean Ross Sapp for him to confirm it and saw some other places. And I'm like, I got to tell Mike now. This is real.
Yeah, that's how I learned, was wrestling fan Chris letting me know. He sent me a text, just said Bray Wyatt died. And just so many thoughts went through my head, but I just didn't think, I don't know what I was thinking. I just put my phone down and I was just like, oh my God, I can't even believe this. So normally I do hear about the wrestling passings on social media. Like when Brody Lee passed away, I was scrolling through Twitter and I see Tony Khan's tweet and all these comments about John Huber. And I remember thinking in that case, yeah, John Huber's a great guy. Why are we talking about him? And it's like you're reading these tweets that this person passed away, and it's like you have to read them 3 or 4 or 5 times before you actually understand, oh, wow, this is real. This is really happening. And so I went online and I saw the news, and then the confirmation was issued by Sean Ross Sapp on Twitter. He said that the folks from the family within WWE as well wanted the cause of death to be released. So SRS tweeted that Windham was dealing with a heart issue. He had been dealing with a heart issue, that is what had kept him out of the ring for so long, and that he got complications with that by catching COVID. And then recently he had more heart complications, and we have since learned that he basically passed away of a heart attack in his sleep. So, like I said, just so incredibly sad. He leaves behind a family. He leaves behind so many fans in wrestling, and the legacy of the Rotunda family and Bray Wyatt's family in wrestling goes back so far. I mean, his grandfather, Blackjack Mulligan, his father, Mike Rotunda, his uncle, Barry Windham, his brother is Bo Dallas, and obviously one of the most well-liked people in wrestling. All of the posthumous accounts coming out about Windham was that he was a really nice guy and a family man, and just he was loved by all. So it just makes it all the more sad to lose him at such a young age. Like I said, 36. It just kind of hit me a little bit, just because I don't know. I'm around that age. I have a small child. It's just, it's because this passing took place around the same time as Terry Funk. You can kind of look at those two situations and say Terry Funk was, 79 years old. He lived several full lives, you could say, about Terry Funk for sure. Everybody got their time with him. He was able to have a long, fulfilling, legendary wrestling career, and share his wisdom with people in his old age more than probably anybody ever will, really, with Terry. And just to then compare that to Windham passing away, like I said, at age 36, it's just already such a mark has been left on the wrestling world by him. But God, there was just so much more he could have done,
Oh yeah, it's for me. You said you're around that age. That is younger than 36 is younger than me. So whenever that happens, that really hits me hard. Man, this is the second time. Not someone I used to work with. He also passed away recently in the last month, and he was only 36. So that's two people that are younger than me in the last month. That really puts you in perspective about how much you got to really enjoy this life that we have. It's pretty. It actually makes it more sad to me. I can't believe it. And he, with Bray Wyatt, he brought me so much joy for all these years. Like, I was very excited for everything. Like, one of the only people I would tune in live to see what was going on. So pretty terrible.
Yeah. And I think that, God, we just need to get better at figuring out a way to show people their respect, and a Hall of Fame induction is great for those who are still alive to receive it. Undoubtedly, which we'll talk about, I'm sure Bray Wyatt will be in the Hall of Fame, but he's not going to be here to be able to receive that, right? Neither will Brody Lee when they inevitably go into the Hall of Fame. And it's just, God, how can we just figure out a way to just show people while they're still here that they matter? I guess. I don't know. It's just, obviously, he was very well respected, but it's just, that's the bad thing about all the tributes, is the one person that you want to see it is not going to see it,
Yeah. At least maybe his children and his close family can see these people give tribute to him, and they can find some love from watching how he's affected everyone else. So that's nice to me. At least they can look at that and see my dad or my husband or my boyfriend or my son or my brother, they were great to me, but they're also great to everyone. So that's to bring people some joy, I hope.
Right. And just, for those people who are still with us, for them to be able to see the impact that their person had, on such a wide audience, it is good for them. And that's what we're going to talk about here today, is the legacy of Bray Wyatt. And the tribute that was on SmackDown. I mean, let's face it, Bray Wyatt could have his own yearly tribute pay-per-view, as could a lot of wrestlers, based on the impact they had on the wrestling business. And really, what would have been awesome is if still in the future, if there could be a Bray Wyatt tribute show. It doesn't have to be in the immediate aftermath of his passing, but just for anybody who couldn't make it, or for anybody who just couldn't maybe make it out onto, in front of the crowd in that, difficult time, just gathering together after the fact to celebrate someone's life. I think that would be good. But what we got was tributes on Raw and SmackDown, so we're going to talk about that a little bit next. So I think we were all prepared to shed a few tears ahead of SmackDown last Friday, and they kicked off the show with a 10-bell salute that was for both Terry Funk and Bray Wyatt. They died a day apart, and the entire roster was at the top of the stage, and they also brought out, former members of the Wyatt family, Braun Strowman, who was recovering from, I think, a neck injury, and they brought out Eric Rowan, who's no longer with WWE, but has had to go through this too many times already.
Yeah.
So that was nice. And then, so they played a very, just an awesome, like, Bray Wyatt tribute video, which was just like, I watched it like 4 times, after, like, just during SmackDown, because once I realized that it was just going to kind of be a normal show after that, those videos, like, like when Jay Briscoe passed away, there was a lot of good highlight videos about him.
Yeah.
And just the thing about the Bray Wyatt tribute video that stuck out to me was just how much energy and charisma he put into every single moment, of his character. And he was just never not at 100% when trying to convince you, right, that this fictional world was real. And it definitely came through on the screen. And like I said, I watched that tribute video so many times. I'm probably going to watch it again. And then we got the scene on the stage there on SmackDown where they showed his rocking chair under the spotlight. And then later on in the evening, they had the lantern in the ring, which I thought was poetic,
Yeah, I mean, the rocking chair thing, that was an emotional time. Like that one hit me hard. It was nice, a nice way to show like a symbol for him. It was a very nice way to, like, honor him there, and it was well done. And I really got hit hard on that one.
Yeah, there's always that moment when it kind of actually hits you that this individual is gone now and they aren't going to come back, right? Like, they were right here and now they are gone. And there's just always that moment. And for me, it was the rocking chair. Just like, the rocking chair is now empty and there's nobody to sit in it, So that part was good, and it's like cathartic, for the fans. It gives the fans a little bit of closure when you're, like I said, one of your favorites just passes away tragically. But yeah, there was a lot of nice tributes on SmackDown. LA Knight and Finn Balor, the first opponent of The Fiend, Finn Balor, closing out the show there with LA Knight, the final opponent of Bray Wyatt in his wrestling career.
Very good, yep.
And then on Raw as well, some tributes, a lot of armbands for Bray, as well as Terry Funk and Brody as well, just because, both men, at this point, their careers are kind of going to be intertwined when you talk about them. Bray Wyatt and Brody Lee, both just two phenomenally gifted, just forces of nature in the world of pro wrestling, just taken from us way too fucking soon.
Absolutely. Ridiculous. Ugh.
So now let's get to the good times. So we are here to pay tribute to the career of Bray Wyatt, so that's what we're going to do. I watched a lot of Bray Wyatt footage over the past week or so, just trying to see how can I put my finger on what it was that Bray Wyatt kind of gave to us as wrestling fans. And I don't think I can actually do it, but that was also part of what I realized when watching all of this. So we're just kind of going to go through and touch on some of, like I said, some of our favorite moments, some of the big moments, and some of the ways that we think Bray Wyatt really changed the game, right? So obviously everybody knows Bray Wyatt's career in WWE started off as Husky Harris, as a member of the New Nexus, and then ultimately that character just really, they just wrote all those people off TV. And then the very beginning days of NXT were also the very beginning days of Bray Wyatt and the Wyatt family. And man, I got a big kick out of going back and watching some of these early NXT Bray Wyatt moments, like his NXT debut match against Aiden English.
Oh, nice.
So everybody's probably seen that footage of Bray Wyatt. It literally looks like a high school drama production where it's just like him and a spotlight on him, like he's just doing a monologue. And it's just that really early, basic version of the kind of like the biblical, the ranting, the prophetic cult leader of Bray Wyatt. And then in his debut match, he comes out. The character was very much a Waylon Mercy type character, especially in the beginning, right?
Oh, absolutely.
The white pants, the mannerisms, the hat, the Hawaiian, not the Hawaiian shirt, that's kind of his thing, but just the way he kind of meandered around the ring. He did this thing in the NXT debut match this is like a early 90s new generation, like weird character thing where you don't know much about this guy, but you know he's here to wrestle, and then he does that one thing during the match to kind of show you his uniqueness, whether it's just going outside the ring and doing something weird, and that's all you get for this debuting character, right? He just he almost does that upside down spider thing, but he does it like outside the ring, like he just dips his head underneath the rope, kind of like upside down outside the ring.
Sure.
And then he's just back into the match. He does the kind of dancing around to set up the Sister Abigail, hits it, wins the match. And then we get, more of the Wyatt family on NXT. And really, in the early days of NXT, it was a lot like a high school drama play or a college drama production. That was just the vibe, right? Between the production, the video packages, it just seemed like everybody was just workshopping everything, right? The characters, the skill sets, it was all the developmental talent. Everybody just seemed like they were there, like they were in school, and they were just practicing and trying things out. That was a big vibe in the early days of NXT. And this is where we got the Wyatt family, right? Bray Wyatt, Luke Harper, and Eric Rowan. And first of all, I'd be remiss to not mention these were some big dudes, okay? Yes. These guys were huge. Everywhere these guys went, they were bigger than everyone. Wrestling fan Chris and I can attest to how large of an individual Eric Redbeard is.
Yes,
in person.
Oh my goodness.
This is the biggest man I've ever been in a room with, Eric Rowan. And the Wyatt family, they all looked like they were about the same size. Brody, I mean, it was almost like it was just, there's a big one, a bigger one, and the biggest one. But just big dudes. I just got to say it. All these guys were just, they were never not huge dudes.
I think that, I don't know who put them together, but I'm sure that was something that Bray Wyatt was thinking about. Like, if we were going to have this kind of stable, we need I'm a pretty big dude. We need some other guys to look hulking around me so I can have like a security team, or like, You're not going to want to mess with me because you're going to have to deal with them. That's pretty smart. They
had a presence, and it was, being that big and intimidating didn't hurt the cause, right?
Yeah.
So we see the Wyatt family on NXT, and I remember in the early days of NXT, I was not a subscriber of whatever cable channel this show was on, okay? I don't know what channel it was on. I guess it was on Hulu. People tell me it was on Hulu. I would just go to the random websites that you're not supposed to, and I was watching this NXT show in this blurry, crappy bootleg video that was probably giving my computer a lot of viruses. But I remember I would keep going back because of characters like the Wyatt family. Because NXT had the small scale vibe, like I mentioned, but there were still characters that you wanted to follow. And for me, looking back, a lot of it was the Wyatt family. And I feel like they really just set the tone in NXT in the early days of what was possible. And then pretty much when the Wyatt family debuted on the main roster, what we got was pretty much what we got down in NXT. The act was relatively unchanged, at least at first, right?
Yeah, and I remember when they were debuting on Raw, and we were getting little glimpses of the compound at first, and like the little house supposed to live in, and how dark it was there, and then throughout the whole night. So it was really nice and developed. Something usually they rush into the debuts, or even if I know it's the same show, but usually they just come out right away. But this was nice and slowly developed, and I really got into it then too, because like, this is going to be a whole thing. They really put in stuff behind this. They got a whole story, so it's going to be great.
And they also really kicked off, maybe they weren't the exact first ones, but they were really in that beginning stage of the NXT call-up, making a big first impression on the main roster. Because, I mean, they played this video when the Wyatt family debuted on Raw, and then they cut to them standing there with the lantern, and Bray Wyatt says, "We're here." And the crowd went nuts.
Oh, yeah, that too. I even forgot about that part. That's so great, yeah.
And you would think that not a lot of people were watching NXT at that time. But this is what I mean. People knew who they were. And when he said, "We're here," people got excited. And then they came out. And it's like, I always love these moments. And this is why it's just so fucking sad when we lose these people. But why it's really almost an obligation on our part to talk about it. Just those moments when you can look back on someone's career, and especially in wrestling, when they're first like working on their character, and there's so much youth still in their face, and there's just this like, they're just so unsure of what they're doing, but they're going ahead with it anyway. You know, like, these guys didn't know what was going to come of this. They didn't know if they were going to fall flat on their face, if the crowd was going to love them, what the Wyatt family would eventually become, the experiences they would have. They were just going out there on their Raw debut. Just, I mean, to me, it's just to watch that back and to know how far they all went, especially with this group, the Wyatt family. You know, basically to the main event of WrestleMania, right? Essentially. Yeah. And it's just watching them come out there. It's just that those are the things I love. Whenever we're watching like a retrospective, I always love looking back and thinking like back when someone was so unsure of themselves and they were just trying it, just putting their effort and their soul into something. And that's what I really like. I was almost like watching it back. I was like excited for these guys to be making their Raw debut, you know? Just because you can imagine what that also must feel like, right?
Oh, yeah, man.
So the Wyatt family, instantly a force on the main roster of WWE, right? I think the one thing that also caught me when I was watching these moments was how in every moment, there was no moment too big for Bray Wyatt, right? It's like he had his background as an athlete. I think he did like football and wrestling, and he came in as an athlete, but what he was persistently pursuing was like playing this character, right? He wasn't trying to have these Kenny Omega 5-star matches.
Yes.
He was trying to make you feel things, right? From the very beginning until the very end. And like I said, there was no moment that was too big for Bray Wyatt. From the debut on Raw to the Wyatt family being contemporaries with The Shield, which is widely recognized as, you know, one of the most dominant factions of the past 20 years. The Wyatt family were their contemporaries. The Shield was the launching point for 3 of the top wrestlers in the world right now. The Wyatt family was right there with them. Right?
Oh, yeah.
As far as what we were watching on screen and what we wanted to see more of. And these guys all came out of NXT, and they came to the main roster, and they didn't sink. They swam amongst all the sharks in the main roster of WWE, right? You could not hold Bray Wyatt down, basically, is what I'm saying. So the Wyatt family, like I said, instantly a force on the main roster. And Bray Wyatt's original character the Eater of Worlds, the Hawaiian shirt, the straw hat, the biblical rantings, the rocking chair. Then we get to basically WrestleMania 30 against John Cena. So Bray Wyatt, his first WrestleMania match was against John Cena.
I mean, that's pretty crazy. I mean,
this is another one. And go back and watch WrestleMania 30. The Wyatt family just standing in the ring. It's like they invaded the WWE. Okay, these guys they looked like they were definitely outsiders, but they were taking over. They just looked like they belonged. Like they did not look like newbies. They did not look green. Like I said, there are some big dudes, and they look like they belong in there. You know. And like, imagine just being those guys. You're getting signed to WWE. This is your chance. They all had Brody had his indie career, and you're at WrestleMania 30 in the Superdome, right? Against John Cena, the biggest, the most popular wrestler. Like I said,
you know they're not going to have John Cena's not going to, or the WWE's not going to have John Cena involved in anything that's not very important or involved with someone who can handle something that big. So that's a tribute to him.
And John Cena did a great job. Like, there was always this criticism that people don't know how to work with this character, whichever version of Bray Wyatt's character at the time that we're talking about. But John Cena was, I mean, it's Bray Wyatt bookend, right? The beginning, WrestleMania, John Cena. WrestleMania 36, the Firefly Funhouse match, right?
Yep.
With John Cena. He was the perfect guy because he could make fun of himself. He could be self-deprecating. He could be in on the joke. He could take a joke. He didn't have these prerequisites that his character wasn't going to be involved in this or that. So he was able to kind of work with the supernatural elements of Bray Wyatt. So a month later, after WrestleMania 30, is when we get the little boy singing "He's Got the Whole World in His Hands" outside the cage. John Cena and Bray Wyatt in a cage match. I mean, how many examples are there of things Bray Wyatt did that wouldn't even get past a pitch meeting if it was somebody else? Right?
Absolutely.
You're going to have a little boy outside the ring sing with a modulated voice and scare John Cena. He's got the whole world in his hands. Well, now look. Now the crowd sings "He's Got the Whole World in His Hands." They were singing it at a Fozzy concert after Bray Wyatt passed away. They were singing it at a soccer game. Bray Wyatt does have the whole world in his hands, and it is because of things like this.
Yes.
So he's against John Cena. We have the little boy. This would have been a recurring thing, the whole world in his hands. Then the following year, WrestleMania, we get Bray Wyatt against The Undertaker. And I also want to say Bray Wyatt's debut match in WWE was against Kane. It was like an Inferno match against Kane. And that was when the Wyatt family put the blanket over the flames and got in the ring. So Bray Wyatt is basically taking out every single he's being involved with every single sort of scary monster, supernatural. And they're basically putting him over. So it's like you're getting rid of Kane first, right? And yes, he did lose to The Undertaker, obviously. But just working with The Undertaker is enough, right?
Yeah.
So WrestleMania 31 against The Undertaker, this was almost an acknowledgement of where Bray Wyatt was at the time, that he was the next incarnation of The Undertaker, right? Meaning he is going to be this supernatural force that is taken seriously. And they had the moment where Bray Wyatt does his spider walk. The Undertaker sits up. It's just iconic.
Yeah. And I mean, another guy that wouldn't do the match, or they wouldn't put anyone in a match with The Undertaker if it wasn't someone who could handle it or was that important or that good. So another one goes to Bray there for being that good at what he's doing and that important, and having The Undertaker do a match with him.
The following year, WrestleMania 32, the Wyatt family faces off with The Rock in the ring. This is where The Rock famously and quickly defeated Eric Rowan. He came out with a flamethrower. He spray painted The Rock in flames. The Wyatt family interrupts. Great segment. And just looking at Bray's face in this segment against The Rock was, like, again, no moment was too big for Bray Wyatt. You know?
It's crazy. I mean, looking at it written down like this in notes, and it's like Cena, then The Undertaker, then The Rock. I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah. And these are not moments that we look back at and says, well, you know, like The Undertaker has had some matches late in his career where he kind of whiffed, right?
Oh, yeah.
Nothing like that from Bray Wyatt, essentially, right?
No.
So, great segment at WrestleMania 32.
I look back on it, that was pretty awesome. It was a great moment, and just having The Rock work with them is awesome.
I always look at those moments and I feel like they wanted them to have more, like maybe they wanted either more moments with The Rock or more moments with the Wyatt family, maybe taking out other people or getting involved in other people. Whenever there's that returning legend, there's always like, who's going to be the young up-and-comer who gets to face off with him? Mm-hmm. And I feel like there was more there with The Rock and Bray Wyatt for sure.
They probably didn't he tear his like tricep or something doing in that? So yeah, or whatever, his pec. Yeah, so maybe there was.
So Bray Wyatt wins the WWE Championship in the Elimination Chamber.
I remember watching this. It's one of the most shocking moments of the last 10 years for me, because I just did not think he was going to win at all, and I was just so happy and excited when he did. It was a great moment. I'll always remember that moment.
I was happy too. And it was one of those moments where you say to yourself, this person deserves it. Maybe this story didn't bring us where I thought it was going to, or maybe this wasn't built up enough as much as it could have been, but you can't not be happy for someone winning their first world championship. There's just those people that are like on your list where it's like, they deserve it, you know? And that's what I felt about Bray Wyatt winning that WWE championship. I was happy for him as well.
Absolutely.
So, WrestleMania 33, Bray Wyatt versus Randy Orton. This was the WrestleMania match famously that was kind of criticized for having the projections of bugs and stuff on the mat, which, again, how much stuff did Bray Wyatt impact and get shown on your television screen that would not have made it past a pitch meeting, right?
I know.
And it's almost like the theme throughout his career is that we couldn't handle his vision. WWE couldn't handle his vision, right? So all of this criticism about how it's hard to work with a scary character. Well, The Undertaker did it for 20 years, okay? So, and no one ever said, it's hard to work with The Undertaker if he's impervious to punches. You know, when I was a little kid, I remember watching all my favorite wrestlers throw punches at The Undertaker, and he would stand there and no-sell them. That made me think this man was impervious to pain. How do you beat this walking zombie dead man? They conveyed that to me. So that means it's possible.
Yeah.
And again, just with the vision that Bray had of all of his characters and his personality, which we're going to get into more of here, it's just backstage, the company, the powers that be, the people in charge, they just were not capable of understanding what they had, what Bray Wyatt brought to the table. The potential was beyond their potential, essentially, is what I'm saying. Right?
Absolutely.
And not everything, especially when you have to go through this bureaucracy to get anything done, not everything is the final result is going to be, you know, this horror masterpiece that he was trying to achieve, right? But I credit him for doing those things that no one else has done, right?
Absolutely, yes.
So that was that WrestleMania 33. Or no, I'm sorry, that was WrestleMania, was it 33? 30. But, when was he with the... So next up on my list, I have Bray Wyatt with the Deleters of Worlds, with the returning... The character Woken Matt Hardy. Again, another supernatural character. Granted, Matt Hardy's character was crafted, created, honed, popularized completely outside of WWE. The broken Matt Hardy character. WWE brings in Matt Hardy essentially they had that legal issue with the broken character. They wanted to get their hands on this version of Matt Hardy. It was the most popular thing in wrestling. And when they did, when they were able to work in the Woken Matt Hardy character, they put him with Bray Wyatt, right? So
Yes.
so there you go, right there. That should tell you what they think when it comes to, who is really capable of these sort of supernatural performances. So we got the
Wasn't that the before they were a tag team? Didn't Bray Wyatt go to the Hardy compound and they had a deletion on Raw?
yes,
Awesome.
right. So there was so many Bray Wyatt matches. There was the Randy Orton Wyatt compound match. There was the Braun, which we're going to get to, the Braun Strowman, the Wyatt Swamp fight.
Oh man, yeah.
This is just stuff that other people didn't do. I guess we were talking about Matt Hardy as well. He did do these type of things, but just to keep going here. So he's tag team champions on Raw and SmackDown with Matt Hardy. And then we get, after this run with the Deleter of Worlds, we get what I think is really Bray Wyatt's best work, his best creation, and something that I don't think anyone else is even capable of recreating or besting in any way, right? Which is the concept of the Firefly Funhouse and The Fiend. So I will obviously say there was criticisms of the booking of The Fiend, the way the matches went, the way the matches ended, but that is not Bray Wyatt's fault. He came to the table with this character, and there will never be anything like The Fiend again, because it's not possible for there to be anything like The Fiend, because no one else is capable of just creating such a nuanced character and then bringing it to fruition the way Bray Wyatt did. He was unique in that way, and that's what we're trying to convey here. So the Firefly Funhouse starts off with these vignettes. They're just these little, straight out of the mid-90s, coming soon kind of vignettes, but there's just this room, and there's like this ticking clock, and it was almost reminded me of like the Boogeyman segments, where there was just this, like, all of these elements of horror where there's like a ticking clock, and there's children's toys, and there's children noises, and then there's like an old television, and there's like this ominous music, and for weeks we got that, right? And then we got the debut of the Firefly Funhouse, which I was critical of at first, but as it went on, I was hooked. And I think I would say that on this show, that I was like really into these Firefly Funhouse segments. So we get Bray Wyatt returning on screen. He is now the host of a children's show. And we get to watch this children's show every week. And every week, he's bringing out a new puppet character. Like he's a mix of Steve from Blue's Clues mixed with Mr. Rogers. He's got this this red sweater on. It's now iconic red sweater. He's doing these things he's doing this over-the-top children's TV show character, and then he's doing these things like he's sawing up a cardboard cutout of the old Bray Wyatt, and he's then painting a watercolor painting of a burning house on his children's show, and he's got actual children on the show, right? And he's like teaching them these concepts that are well above their age, right? And he's got his characters on this children's show, which we're now going to go over. So we had Mercy the Buzzard, Huskus the Pig Boy, Abby the Witch, Ramblin' Rabbit. I don't think I'm forgetting any.
No, I think that was it, yeah.
And what these characters were all sort of throwbacks to previous iterations of the Bray Wyatt character, previous ideas, previous mentalities that he had, previous criticisms of his character. So Mercy the Buzzard, like I mentioned, go back and watch Bray Wyatt's NXT debut. He literally resembles Waylon Mercy. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So we got Mercy the Buzzard as sort of a tribute or a reference to the OG original Bray Wyatt character that was criticized for being too much like Waylon Mercy. You're too much like, Robert De Niro in Cape Fear here. So he's got to kind of evolve the character a little bit. And then we get Ramblin' Rabbit, who now, this is another criticism that Bray faced throughout his career, that his promos were oftentimes rambling, and that he would say these things and they wouldn't make sense, even though 7 or 8 years later, he would be saying things straight out of these promos from the early days, from 2013, 2014. Years later, we were still decoding these, but whatever, he was rambling.
Yeah.
And a lot of it didn't go anywhere. That was the criticism. So we get Ramblin' Rabbit, who's, maybe kind of like a not the brightest, doesn't know what's going on all the time character. And he also died on this show like several times, Ramblin' Rabbit did. He got squished. So we also get Abby the Witch, which is a reference to Sister Abigail, which is Bray Wyatt's finishing move. Also a character he frequently referenced. In the beginning of his career, he would talk about Sister Abigail as if she was someone, as if he had a sister named Abigail somewhere. We haven't met yet. We haven't seen this person. Maybe they're a supernatural being. Maybe they're a ghost. Maybe they're going to be a character. Maybe Bray Wyatt is going to come out as Sister Abigail.
I think we're heading that way. Remember, I think it was Dean Ambrose, and then COVID hit or something hit, or when that little, it wasn't COVID, it was another thing that hit the locker room, and then he couldn't come out with that match. So I wonder, I would have liked to see how he pulled that off, because he definitely could have.
So we have Abby the Witch on the show, and then we also have Huskus the Pig Boy, obviously a reference to Husky Harris, a reference to Bray Wyatt. Just they named him Husky. I mean, kind of tells you everything. And Huskus is the Pig Boy's character, was that he was a chubby pig who needed to lose weight, and he was wearing workout clothes, but he had like chocolate all over his mouth because he was always eating a chocolate bar. He was eating too many chocolate bars. He wouldn't lose the weight. These are things that happened on WWE television, mind you. So one whole layer of this Bray Wyatt character is not just the kind of the audacity that he had and the vision that in his mind was so fleshed out that we just needed to let him do it so we could finally see it and know what he was talking about. He was also able to bring forth things on screen that were really meta and were really kind of what is very popular in wrestling these days, which is making fun of things that have this little kernel of truth or breaking the fourth wall in a certain way. I mean, he had the Vince McMahon as a devil character.
Yeah.
Like he's making a puppet of Vince McMahon with devil horns, and it's going on the show,
It's pretty crazy, yeah.
And the Vince puppet is saying, ha ha ha, that's such good shit, in the funhouse. Like, this is he's getting away with putting this stuff on screen. And Huskus the Pig Boy was part of that. So he's dealing with these puppets. They're bickering. They're confronting issues, right? Like I said, meta issues. And then there becomes this ominous sort of foreboding reference to this other being, right? We're going to make him mad. We don't want to make him mad, but he's here to protect us. There's very much this Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde component to this overly happy. We don't know what made Bray Wyatt turn into a television host for children, but now he is overly happy. He is filled with toxic positivity, and we don't know why. He's got these gloves, these fingerless gloves that said, I don't know, what did the gloves say? Was it fear and pain? Real hurt? Oh, heal and hurt. He had these gloves that said heal and hurt on them. Or hurt and heal is the way it looked across on television. And he would cover his eyes with these gloves. And like I said, there was this mentioning of him, the person we don't want to see, the person that Bray Wyatt does not want to come out. This was awesome. This was incredible. This was something unique that, like I said, can never be done again. This was a near perfect introduction of an alternate personality character.
And then he comes out and when he debuts, it's like legitimately, it looks great, it looks scary, it's great. Like if he comes out with like it's just his face or something, and then it's not going to land. But he comes out in this crazy like mask that looks horrifying, and the entrance is great, and the let me in on the screen is flashing. It was just everything was well done, so good.
So before we get to him in the ring, we were in the Funhouse. We're still in the Firefly Funhouse, and we're
right.
So Bray Wyatt is saying, "Let me in." This is where the "Let me in" character, the catchphrase comes about. Let me in. We don't want to let him in. We don't want to open that door, right? There's a door right behind us. We don't want to open it. We don't want to let him in. We get these little flashes of the scary mask, the scary face. What are we doing here now? We know Bray Wyatt. We know what he's capable of. We know he can be a scary guy. What is going on here? Then we finally get, and this is something I'll never forget, is the first time we see the Fiend himself in the Firefly Funhouse, right? The door's open. He's standing there. It's just the Fiend in the flesh. The mask, the red, the lighting. You can kind of not see him, so like too much light doesn't like ruin the character. You just see that his hair, the mask, which is an incredible horror mask. No mask like will ever be done like this in wrestling again, unless the same person who made this mask tries to outdo themselves, right?
Yeah.
So we get the mask, the outfit, these pants, the gloves, the jacket. Just an incredible character before us, the Fiend. Now we get to the Fiend's debut, right, which is Finn Balor in the ring. The Fiend comes out, Sister Abigail. But we get the lights going off, and they don't just go off. There's that clicking of the noise of the lights slowly da-doom, clicking off, like it's happening in stages. So we get these seconds to kind of process what's happening. It's not just, oh, the lights are off, who's it going to be? And then we get in the ring. There's this alarming music. It's not music, but it's like, what is that? It's like this noise. It's like an alarm going off almost of just in like ominousness. And now the Fiend is in the ring. The lights, there were those guys outside the ring flashing the lights on him so you could kind of see him and you kind of couldn't. That was awesome. And now the Fiend is among us, right? So now, and we didn't even get the entrance the first time. I think we just got the Fiend in the ring. Then his first match is when we get the Fiend making an actual wrestling entrance, which I've always said the Fiend's music was some of the better Bray Wyatt mixes, because it's a mix of that Mark Crozer catching flies, and then it's also this
yeah, you love that song.
And it's like there's this mix, and a lot of times when you're mixing two different wrestling songs, it just doesn't work. And it's like this, it basically was like a perfect mixture of like horror sound effects. It was like a horror sound effects board, but pushed all in the exact right order. Like it wasn't just random horror sound effects. It was like building and building. And then the Fiend walks out and he's holding the lantern, Bray Wyatt's lantern. Except it's not. It's Bray Wyatt's head. And the mouth is wide open, and that is where the lantern light is, in Bray Wyatt's mouth. Something you still shouldn't show your children.
That's right.
I mean, again, who can do this? Oh, I want to make a lantern of my head and carry it as if I'm carrying my severed head.
I know, who even thinks of that?
I mean, it was great. So then we get to the criticism, the booking of the Fiend, right? It was difficult for these people to book this character on a wrestling show. How do you book a guy who's a monster? How do you book a guy who's a scary, evil demon? How do you book a demon? There were plenty of times where people lost interest in the Fiend. The Goldberg match, Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, all of these, how do you fight a monster from a horror movie was the excuse they would always give when they wanted the Fiend to basically lose, right?
Yeah.
And also in that Hell in a Cell match, they just couldn't. Like, my response to that Hell in a Cell booking is, The Undertaker had Hell in a Cell matches. Go back and watch those. How did you book that guy? You didn't have to do this red lights, red cage, put the toolbox over his head. You know, so that turned a lot of people off. So that was where there were times also throughout all of these Bray Wyatt characters where people became less interested. People stopped being interested because they couldn't tell where it was going, because maybe it wasn't going anywhere, because ultimately Bray wasn't in control of the booking of his character.
Yeah.
All he did was bring this A+ level horror character to the table. And then from there, obviously, like I said, people have their criticisms. So it was a difficult character to book, to work with. So WWE did drop the ball at times. But The Fiend was a Universal Champion. So The Fiend, that was actually Roman. So Roman comes back and beats The Fiend. That was what started the era of Roman Reigns' current.
Oh, yeah.
Era.
Yep.
He beat The Fiend, and I believe it was Braun Strowman. So now we get to 2020. The world is shutting down, right? We are all sitting at our houses, just uncertain of all of our futures, and we're a few weeks away from WrestleMania, which is supposed to be in Tampa. We end up getting the WrestleMania at the Performance Center, the forgotten WrestleMania, the one that everybody wants to forget, even though we all sat there and watched it 2 nights, the first 2-night WrestleMania.
Yep.
A slight reprieve from our uncertainty at the time in 2020. And the highlight of this, an all-timer here of great WWE content, was the Firefly Funhouse match. So I watched this one again. This was incredible, especially looking back, especially with the idea that things are so, there's so much diplomacy and working involved with getting things approved and trying to convey the concept that you came up with to the higher ups. So we get John Cena coming out to the Performance Center for his match with The Fiend. He's acting as if there's a crowd there. There's no crowd there. He gets in the ring, and it just starts going haywire, right? He's in the ring. We got so many. People did deep dives, dissections of every little Easter egg in this match. In a time where WWE was just desperate for content, Bray Wyatt took the reins of this thing and gave us a fever dream, folks. Something that is not appreciated enough, the Firefly Funhouse match. And this is what I was saying when I said John Cena was the perfect guy to do this. John Cena, they replay the Ruthless Aggression segment where Kurt Angle is saying he wants anybody in the locker room to have ruthless, or to come out and challenge him, except it's Bray Wyatt. And John Cena comes out and he says Ruthless Aggression, and he's slapping him, and he's disappearing like if you were having a bad dream. And then he's disappearing, he's slapping him. My favorite moment of this match, one of my favorite moments, Bray Wyatt in the ring, as he's disappearing, evading John Cena's strikes, goes, "You can look, but you can't touch."
Yes.
Guys. So, and we're cutting back and forth between these scenes. They brought back the SmackDown Fist for this match. Cena put on his old trunks from 20 years ago. It was great. Then we get the NWO Cena. What was this? The John Cena, Bray Wyatt comes out. He's acting as if he's Eric Bischoff and he's about to bring out Hollywood Hogan. Instead, we get Hollywood Cena coming out. Then we get to Saturday night's main event from the 80s. They're showing clips of Hogan, Terry Funk, Big John Studd. And now we get this blue cage promo with Bray Wyatt, the Muscle Man. Again, a play on the concept that he needed to be more muscular. John Cena, the perfect example of someone who was muscular enough. No one was muscular enough in WWE, but John Cena was. And another epic moment is just John Cena pumping this iron indefinitely. He's just pumping. He's just he cannot stop pumping. It's like a dream when you can't stop, you can't get away. John Cena is lost in this pump of just pumping these barbells, and it's just, you just look at Bray Wyatt's face and he's like, look at the vascularity. It's just, oh my God, incredible. Just the statements that were being made in this match, right? And then ultimately the Fiend did win the match. But just frame by frame, piece by piece, this match was like, no one expected it to be what it was. And no one expected Bray to be able to incorporate so many little Easter eggs and tidbits into this match and to give you just more, like I said, of his vision of what the Fiend character is and can do to people, which is make them have fever dreams that they're back in 2003.
Awesome.
So that was a moment no one will forget, the Firefly Funhouse match. And then the Bray Wyatt feuding with Braun Strowman turns into Alexa Bliss. The Fiend is going to attack Alexa Bliss because Braun Strowman is fond of Alexa Bliss. They're hinting that they like each other. Nope. Alexa Bliss turns evil, joins the Fiend. And then
there was so much potential in that too. What a great idea to try and add more layers to the character.
Oh yeah, for sure. A lot of untapped potential with the Fiend and Alexa Bliss there, for sure. With the swamp fight, which is where she was kind of there, and then she would appear, come out together. There was the doll.
Oh yeah, the doll. Yep.
And ultimately, the Fiend. So Randy Orton defeats the Fiend in a Firefly Inferno match, of course. And now we get the burnt Fiend, right? So literally, go back and look at pictures. It was weird at the time. This is like a whole new costume of the Fiend. I don't know. I don't think that they literally just burnt it. He's got burnt arms as part of his costume, right? Like he's he's like a Freddy Krueger burnt character, like a burnt person, right? This burnt Fiend. The mask is all melted, and he's still coming back out here. And then ultimately, the Fiend and Alexa Bliss, the Fiend disappears at WrestleMania, basically. And that's basically the last we see of the Fiend. He's in this box, it's like Jack in the Box, and then there's blood, black, like liquid, running down Alexa's face. And like I said, that's the last we see of the Fiend, until the hinting recently. But, So then Bray Wyatt gets released from the WWE, shockingly, in 2021. They're releasing people sort of person by person during the pandemic. Bray Wyatt gets released. So much emphasis. This guy the Fiend had his own championship belt. They were selling for $5,000.
Yes.
Alexa Bliss's very popular doll was selling. The Fiend was top merchandise seller at a time. And there was a lot of metrics like that you can go back and look at that made it very clear that the people were interested in what Bray Wyatt was doing, mostly all the time. So he's released in 2021. He returns in 2022. Now, we talked a lot about this on the show, and the reason why we talked about Bray Wyatt week by week is because we were interested in what was going on with Bray Wyatt week by week. Whether it was back with the Fiend, the White Rabbit stuff, Uncle Howdy, which we'll get to, we were interested. And you can criticize anything on a week-by-week basis. Like I said, my summary judgment here is that the people in charge were not capable of understanding what they had. They were like cavemen playing with fire. They didn't understand. They were like, they couldn't write something good enough for the Fiend character and Bray Wyatt to fully grasp what he was trying to accomplish. So we get these White Rabbit songs playing in the arenas in between commercials. WWE, they have all these Easter eggs, QR codes, websites, coordinates, latitude and longitude, names of towns, like a Windham hotel somewhere. There were so many Easter eggs that were pointing to the return of Bray Wyatt. And then we finally got the return of Bray Wyatt. We got these more promos. A new version of Bray Wyatt is going to emerge here. And he comes out, Bray Wyatt, no mask, no character, except the new Bray Wyatt, which now this is a Bray Wyatt who has been through a lot of stuff. He's been through the ups and downs of his characters, you know, failing at times, creative frustrations. He's been through the death of his best friend, Brody Lee, which we all went through. He had been through his heart issue that we did not know about until his passing. And he gets in the ring and he cuts his promo essentially as himself, as Windham. And we just interpreted it as a new version of the Bray Wyatt character, but it was really and profoundly Windham's last chance to, you know, communicate with the fans, communicate with the people that followed him, and to kind of let them know what he had gone through, what his plans were, and what he was feeling just in that at that time, and how he was nervous about coming back, nervous about doing this new thing. The character direction, with the introduction of Uncle Howdy, which was played by Bo Dallas, his brother. There was a lot to that, a lot of week by week. There was like 8 weeks where it was just Uncle Howdy and Bray Wyatt back and forth. Yeah. I liked it. I know there was a lot of criticisms that it didn't always add up. And the final match, obviously, was a Mountain Dew sponsored match with glow in the dark elements, so that was not like awesome. But I love the return of Bray Wyatt. I rewatched the return promo, and in a lot of ways, what it amounted to was sort of a goodbye from Windham without us knowing it, because he did obviously talk more week by week, and he did obviously have that match with LA Knight, the Mountain Dew glow in the dark match with Uncle Howdy jumping off the balcony. But really, that promo was our final window into the mind of Windham Rotunda. And that's what I'll always remember that as. And that is, I'm glad he got to come out and do it. And this is all we get from Windham Rotunda, right? He passed away at the age of 36. So we won't ever know what the plan was for Uncle Howdy or the Fiend, the return of the Fiend. But that's life, and that's being a wrestling fan. Is you never know when, you know, you've seen the last of a certain thing, and you never know when someone's story is going to get cut short, unfortunately. And it is, like I said, extremely sad to lose someone so beloved at such a young age, someone so well respected as Windham Rotunda was. But I hope that we have been able to do our best to shine a light on what he offered us as a person and as a performer. And I know we're all going to miss him. And I just couldn't not do a show about Windham, you know?
Had to be done. He's one of our favorites, and seems like a favorite of many people, whether it's the character Bray Wyatt or just Windham himself. So I'm glad to do it.
Yeah, so we hope we did a good job, and if not, fuck it. But I just wanted to make sure that I took the time to use my voice to say thank you, Bray Wyatt, and rest in peace, Windham Rotunda.